Hello and welcome to Air Traffic Technology International's Roundtable, ATM Beyond 2021, Unmanned Traffic Management. First of all, I'd like to thank you for taking the time to join us during this 1-hour session about a subject that I'm sure you, like me, are very excited today about, unmanned traffic management. So it has been unusual times for all of us, but most would agree an increase in unmanned air vehicle traffic is still very much a certainty this decade. The development of drones, air taxis, and the systems that support their operations are all still moving forward rapidly. Also, in many places, it's up to ANSPs to ensure that unmanned traffic can be integrated effectively and safely into airspace and ATM systems. So it's exactly that we are here today to discuss: UTM, its component parts, and its introduction. And with us, we are lucky to have a panel of experts at the very cutting edge of UTM, both from Europe and the USA. I'm pleased to introduce those people now. First of all, I'd like to introduce you to PK, who is director of the NASA's Aeronautics Research Institute and is responsible for exploring new trends and partnerships related to aviation enterprise. He also serves as NASA's senior technologist for air transportation systems and is principal investigator for the Unmanned Aircraft Systems Traffic Management Project, which I'm sure many of you have heard about. Also on the panel, we have Eduardo Garcia, who is the CANSO manager of European ATM Coordinations and Safety. He coordinates and advocates for CANSO Europe's positions on technical operations and safety matters. This includes UAS and UTM topics. Finally, but not least, I'd like to introduce Cristiano Baldoni, who is CEO of D-Flight, an ENAV group company. Cristiano started his career at ESTEC, the ESA's testing facility in the Netherlands, before working on the ESA's Infrared Space Observatory scientific mission as spacecraft operations engineer. He joined the Italian ANSP ENAV in 2000 and in 2018 was appointed CEO of D-Flight, a spin-off company that is tasked with developing UTM technology. Cristiano, can you just tell us briefly a little bit more about D-Flight maybe and what it is that you do?
Sure, Ben, thank you, and hello everybody. D-Flight is a spin-off of ENAV, the Italian air navigation service provider, which scope is really to develop the U-Space, well, the way we call it in Europe, the UTM platform, technicalities, and the service provision, which is necessary to allow US operations in our airspace. It is a company that has been funded by ENAV in 2018 and then joined by Leonardo and Telespazio, which are our partner, and those have been selected through an open tendering process for selection of the technology partner. We think it's really important to have such a kind of technology partner for an NSP in such a new domain as UTM. Thank you.
Great. Thanks. Thank you, Cristiano, for that brief introduction. PK, could you just tell us a little bit more about what you're doing and what you're up to at the moment? Hi, PK, are you there? Well, let's go back to PK.
I have
Hello,
a lot of questions. So the first is, of course, the space operations. And can you hear me?
PK. Yeah, just about. Sorry, for those that don't, PK's joining us from the US. So
can you hear me?
Yeah. Can hear you. Okay. Just not hear him at the moment.
Good. Yeah, so okay. I have passions, and one of the big areas for me is working on advancing global harmonization and also expanding the UTM paradigm through what we call UTM inspired and other parts of airspace operations. So the lessons learned we have in UTM, how can we use them for other parts of airspace? That I'm really focused on. My side, I also work on a few other things, urban air mobility, aviation supply chain management. Over to you.
Okay. All right. Thank you, PK. And Eduardo, just tell us a little bit about what you're doing for cancer at the moment in the area of UTM, please.
Thank you, Ben. Thanks for your kind introduction and for inviting me to be part of this panel. Yes, I would like to introduce a couple of initiatives that Cancer is doing, but just as a quick introduction from my side for the panel is of course to highlight that COVID-19 continues to have devastating impact on the air traffic sector, so airlines, ANSPs, airports. For example, in Europe, the last report from Eurocontrol shows that the traffic is still 34% of 2019 traffic levels. So the impact of the pandemic is still very difficult to digest. It's a very painful period for all of us. However, of course, it is clear that we need to find ways of building resilience, plan for the future, and advance technology that will make the air traffic management system more scalable, greener, resilient to disruption like this pandemic. But also from Canso side and Canso members, it is essential to facilitate, of course, the safe integration of all these new urban vehicles. I'm not talking only about drones, but also supersonic flight, speed vehicles, and more new entrants that they want to use and share the airspace. So yes, this pandemic has created industry-wide challenges that can only be overcome working together. And when we talk about this immense challenge, the safe and efficient integration of drones, we believe that the same approach is required. We need to work all together. Industry, policymakers. So in the next hour, I think we are going to be talking a lot about technology, digitalization, standards, regulations. But as I would like to start highlighting this message, collaboration is key if we want to unleash the potential of this new industry, okay? And it's not as easy as it sounds, okay? When you talk about cooperation, collaboration, we need to be very clear and we need to agree on this joint vision and work together towards it. So I would like to just highlight very briefly two examples of this collaboration industry-led initiative, which Canso is leading or is fully involved. One is in Europe. It's called We Are All One in the Sky. It is composed by 18 associations, and it is chaired by IATA and Canso. And just to highlight that it's very difficult to work together, 18 associations, airports, professional association, engineers, air traffic controllers, manufacturers, with the same objective. Believe me, it's not easy, but we are doing it. And we have been working very closely with the European regulators, for example, to develop this new regulation on geospace. What is how we call UTM in Europe. That was published, was approved, not published yet, but approved 2 days ago. So that is just a clear example of good collaboration. Another example that I would like to mention is an initiative that we are going to launch very soon. It's called Complete Air Traffic Management Global Council. So this will be an independent forum, which main aim will be to facilitate innovation and collaboration. We have invited thinkers, leaders from ANSPs, UTM service providers, aircraft manufacturers, drone operators, high-tech companies, to get together and to work on a vision for the future of skies. And again, collaboration and working together is the key message here. I will be able to share more about this initiative very soon. We are having the kickoff meeting actually in a couple of weeks.
Great. Okay. All right. Thank you, Eduardo. I just need to do a couple of housekeeping type things first. So just to explain everyone who doesn't know yet the format. I'm hoping PK can rejoin us. As I said, he's coming in from the west coast of the US, so I guess his signal has a long way to travel. So hopefully he will be back in with us soon. But basically, the panel and myself are going to discuss some of the issues around UTM for about 20-25 minutes first. During that time, I'd encourage you all to as the audience to submit questions via the tab on the right-hand page of your screen. While that's going on, keep them as brief as possible, as short as possible, and they won't appear instantly in the feed. But during the second half, the panel will pose those questions to the panel, and we will publish them as the panel answers them. So don't be concerned if your questions aren't seen straight away. We will publish them later. I'd also encourage you to pose your questions during the first half, because sometimes what happens is we run out of time. So the earlier you get your questions, the sooner we can all answer and discuss them. So finally, I'd just like to thank our sponsors, ENAV, General Dynamics Mission Systems, and MITRE for supporting this event and helping to make it happen. Also in the top right corner, you'll see a tab for handouts. They do have literature available to download there, and I would encourage you all to take a look at that. Great. So just to start things off, I'd like to ask you, Cristiano. I did warn you about this question when we discussed it as quite a big question. But what preparations do you think ASMPs should be making now to integrate unmanned traffic into their airspace and operations? What should people be doing now, if anything?
Yeah, this is the question of the question. So I would say my impression is that, first of all, there must be a need in mindset changing. Drones should not be seen as a hurdle, but should actually be seen as an opportunity. It's an opportunity for the country. It's an opportunity for the society. And nowadays, it is also an opportunity for the NSP themselves, because, we are not running too much traffic, traditional traffic. So unmanned traffic is definitely anti-cyclic as an economy. And we would definitely need drones being able to dispatch vaccines and medicines and goods and so on and so forth, as we experience in these very tough months we had, and for which we are not yet over. That's the first thing I would say. Now, accommodating a UTM, accommodating a US operation is difficult, especially in countries where constraints are many. And I look for Italy. Our airspace is complicated, and the land aspect is also complicated, with a lot of entities that, for a reason or the other, they can somehow they have the power to block eventually the use of drones in some portions of airspace. So first of all, beside the NSP, there is also a problem of social acceptance, probably, and some kind of authority which is able to tell everybody else, okay, now drones need to be flown, and let's make what we need to accommodate them. Coming back to NSPs, I think the real problem is the uncontrolled airspace rather than controlled airspace. So basically, the portion of airspace that somehow are outside the control of NSP, of the direct control of NSPs. And we know that there are a huge portion of airspace, especially when we look at very low-level operations, which are not controlled, and for which the main issue is probably the electronic conspicuity of everything is flying. Eduardo knows me since a while. I've been working in Cesar since 2003, and one of the things I was proposing at the time of the Cesar definition phase was, let's have the Mosquito having a transponder on board. I think this is a key issue, and as this will happen at some time, we will be able really to fly BVLOS operations all over the country without too many issues and too many fears. In the meanwhile, we can organize with some technicalities and some coordinations. We are providing already some technical levels in terms of view space services. So, for instance, we can have operators reserving their area of operations on a map digitally, so that everyone can take can build their situation awareness with regard to who is using some portion of airspace, whether manned or unmanned. And so we are putting together information. We call it drone operation plan, drone operation area. Drone operation area is a very simple tool people can activate with their mobile for open category. Drone operation plan is more complex and is reserved for specific operations, eventually long range BVLOS. And then, of course, we can bring in the position of the drones themselves through networking identification, the position of low-level altitude manned aircraft, and put all this information together and bring to the operators, to the other interested stakeholders, a situational picture, a traffic picture, which is quite reliable and which can be used. We are not saying that you can self-separate on that traffic picture, because we are not yet at that stage, and maybe we will never get there, because probably UTM slightly in a different way as ATM won't take over the responsibility of the separation among US drones and manned aircraft. This is something quite controversial yet.
That's great. Thank you, Cristiano. Eduardo, do you have anything to add to that? I mean, what kind of timeline are we looking at, or ANSPs looking at now? Do you think do they need to be taking action now?
Just to complement a bit what Cristiano has said. So what is clear is that integration is our shared vision. We need to work all together to achieve this full integration of the drones in the system. I don't think that anyone supports that segregation is the solution. But I mean, for example, in Europe, this week is important. As I was saying, a new regulation on US space UTM has been approved. And in this new regulation, well, it is based, the approach that has been applied is based on segregation on manned and unmanned traffic. So it is clear that we are not there yet. Okay, a lot of things we need to work a lot to achieve the full integration. So just to explain to the audience, so the concept that we see in this new regulation is called dynamic reconfiguration of the airspace, something similar to this flexible use of airspace concept, that we use with military aircraft. Of course, that will increase complexity of the airspace. And we know complexity is not a good friend of safety. So it is something that we will definitely need to work all together. The ANSPs has a lot. We are now, and it's our mission really to work with EASA and with the Commission to develop the operational concept, the guidance material. How do we implement this? So we are going to be busy for the next years working on this, without forgetting that definitely our vision is the integration. And for that, there are definitely some things that a lot of research is being done, and I hope we will see the results soon. But we need the common rules of the air. We need validated, detect, and avoid solutions. This is fundamental. This will enable and support remote pilots to maintain safe separation from other aircraft. Cristiano has been talking a lot about electronic conspicuity. That is key. And there are still many other important details like applicable separation minima. So anyway, I'm confident that we will find validation solutions for all these issues. How soon about the timeline? I'm not sure.
And some good news yesterday on talking about agreements on U-Space, wasn't there? We were talking briefly before. That was.
Yes, so the European member states, they have endorsed the proposal from the Commission and EASA for this new regulation on U-Space. It's a key milestone. As I was saying, we have been working very closely to achieve this. But still, of course, I have to say not all our inputs that were taken into consideration. For example, we still have many questions about questions about this dynamic reconfiguration of the airspace. So a lot of work in front of us.
Yeah, sure. But it's nice to see the agreement, and it would seem without the UK, everybody may be agreeing a bit more in Europe, but I won't take that personally. I'd just like to pose another question, starting with you, Cristiano. What other technologies do you think are important or most important to ANSPs who want to integrate unmanned drone operations into their air traffic management systems so that deconfliction doesn't occur? You did touch upon a few there. Would you like to highlight any others?
Well, I think that more than technologies now, we really need to organize some dedicated structures within NSPs to cope with US operations in order to verify the potential conflicts in the time horizon. So the strategic deconfliction with manned aviation, assessing the impact when those operations are taking place within controlled portion of airspace, for instance, in the vicinity of the airports and so on and so forth. And more important, that these organizational units work for the US operation. So the costs of those organizational units are not posed, let me say, in the traffic rates for manned aviation, but the costs of those organizational units are recovered through those that are operating US. Now, I think that one issue is that the market is still very small, but this gonna change if we manage to activate the big market for big industries, flying drones and fleet of drones for good delivery, for inspection management. Then also that market will be much richer than the photographer using the drone to make the video of a marriage, which can definitely not afford the cost of some people from NNSP making this assessment, right? So these things need to change gradually through the opening of the market and through better organizing our structure, so that we can really dedicate effort for accommodating this new traffic, together with the technologies, of course.
Sure. Okay, sure. Eduardo, anything to add to that, or should we move on?
Well, very briefly, from my side, when we talk about the confliction and safety, of course, we can focus on certain technologies. We were talking before about attack and avoidance, which definitely is very important. But I think what we really need is a total approach, like we have in ATM. So the whole ATM system is driven by safety. It was designed focus on system with different layers, from strategic to tactical to self-separation to collision avoidance. And we need the same for ATM. We need this total approach. At the end, and Cristiano and I, we work on CESAR on this. 4D trajectory management is the final objective. But yes, that's basically my views on this.
Okay. Thank you. Cristiano, you touched upon something there about the wedding photographer. And to me, that always... that sums up to me that there's more stakeholders now. There will be more stakeholders in the future, different users, more diverse users, many different users in the future. One of those is going to be the military, defense. So I'd like just to ask you guys what's the best way to coordinate for ANSPs and the military that are using more drones and look set to use more drones? I mean, how do they do that safely? What are the issues there?
Okay, there are different issues there. I think that with regard to the permeability between civil and military operations, we can definitely learn from what has been done already in the ATM. So basically export a similar model in UTM as we did for ATM. For instance, the Italian experience is that we have in the same center, in the same control center, military controllers, military ATCOs, and civil ATCOs. The civil ATCOs take care of civil operations, plus the military operation where they're flying GATT. When the militaries are flying OAT, they are taken over by the military controllers. So we should establish a similar mechanism for UTM, because we will have both unmanned operations, which will participate to the collaborative surveillance infrastructure that will be established through the networking identification system, and military operation that might not be willing to be seen for sure, yet they need to be flown in a safe mode. So we have then two, basically, in my view, two basically different options. One could be to establish some kind of temporary no-fly zones to allow some state operations or special operations, which could be manned or unmanned, for instance, for emergency or for military operations and so on, or law enforcement operation and so on and so forth. Or we might also have some drones flying, let me say, with a civil hat, while they are actually not civil hats. So I don't have an exact English term for defining that, but I would say in Italian, sotto mentite spoglie. Maybe Eduardo, that understands my Italian, can translate it into English.
We'll try.
Pretending to be somebody else.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Sure. Okay. I'm getting a message that PK is with us, although his name isn't up on the screen. Are you? This is going to sound a bit silly, but are you there, PK? Wait, can you hear me? I think we're just. Okay. Oh, okay. I can't hear him, so yeah.
Ben, if I can, it's a real pity, because to me, I was saying while we started the sound check, PK is really the father of UTM. So losing him in our webinar is really a pity.
It's a shame, isn't it? Yeah, and because we were chatting for nearly 30-40 minutes before, to lose him now. No one can see him on his screen. No, you can't, Eduardo or Cristiano.
I can, yeah.
Oh, you can. Okay, I can't. So, but you can't hear him, or?
There is just one problem with the sound. I think he's trying to fix it.
Okay, all right.
He can be with us.
No problem. All right. Well, let's I can't see him, so we'll keep talking amongst ourselves, I guess. Let's talk about standards a little bit. What technical and safety standards? We've touched upon this a little bit, but are there any? What do you think are the most important to really get public acceptance? Do we have to have high visibility of these standards to introduce more unmanned traffic? Eduardo, do you have a view on standards?
Maybe Cristiano. I think is in a better position to answer that one.
Okay, right.
From my point of view, one key challenge that for me will be a difficult one. I mean, more thinking not about drones but about air taxis. When we think about transporting people, the certification of the VTOL aircraft, I think that is a key issue. I really hope that we will see a strong collaboration between the FAA and EASA on this, because I think it is a key topic. We need a harmonized approach. And I know it will take a long time, but this is a key issue. When we are talking about the big drones, the air taxis, certification is very important. So looking forward to see this collaboration between the FAA and EASA on this.
Okay, great. All right, thanks, Eduardo. Cristiano, do you have anything to add, or shall we move on? I think we'll move on.
No, I think the answer from Eduardo is very interesting. Of course, there are several other things in terms of standards that need to be still brought into the table. To me, one question is whether U-Space will be will be what we need in place only to cope with the smaller drones, or if this will be also enough to cope with air taxi and with operations transporting people. So we will standardize somehow use space in the way that the EASA and the Commission is setting out now the regulatory package. We have a lot of questions about that, you know, and the standardization process is still far to come. That's an issue, especially when we think about interoperability between use space service provider exchanging information among them about the flight authorization process and the dynamic reconfiguration process with between ANSPs and many USP services. That's a big mess and a lot of standards that are needed in place beforehand. By the way, those standards should be needed up front, not on a downstream. I don't know if I was clear enough.
No, I understand what you mean. Yeah, that's fantastic. Thank you, Cristiano. We're just going to plow on. I'd like to take the questions from the audience now. We've had quite a few in. Thank you very much to everybody that's done those. So I am going to ask the one right at the top first from Gianpaolo. He would like to ask, why are we not looking? Why don't we look at the whole subject from a different perspective? That the manned aviation industry should consider changing to cope with the flourishing unmanned aviation industry. Cooperation leads to a win-win situation, while separating and defence leads to long-term costs. So I think what he's saying there is we're looking at it slightly from the wrong perspective that we all have to share in the future anyway. Does that make sense, Eduardo? You were kind of nodding your head there. What are you saying?
I was trying to fully understand the question. So can you repeat it just to make sure I get it right?
Yeah.
We should look at the.
You better read it, Eduardo. If you open the question and answer panel. Okay. So that's easier. It's quite a long question. I really appreciate it, by the way. But if you read it, maybe it's clear. Sorry.
Yeah, Ben, can you hear me? I mean, I can try to answer it to start with, and then that will give Eduardo some time to pick up.
Please do,
I read the question. Yeah, and I think that's an important question, and we all want to see a future harmonized airspace that's interoperable from ground to heaven, so to speak. However, getting to that is a challenge. You cannot just turn the knob and say, tomorrow we are in the new airspace world. So the question is, how do we slowly migrate towards that future of collaborative, cooperative, digital, intent sharing, some level of service-oriented architecture? And the reason that the way it is evolving is 400 feet and below, where nobody was providing service, so in the particularly uncontrolled airspace. So it's still cherished by air traffic management, but it's services. So we're taking opportunistic view. We take the 400 feet and below, we take the 60,000 feet and up, which is the upper E airspace. Then we are taking the urban air mobility, 4,000 feet and below. And then you start to work on the Class A airspace, provide services by third parties, and slowly we evolve to mesh all of that. That's sort of the going in way of transitioning and gradually making changes. We also want to make sure that we are right when we are trying this, right? So the 400 feet and below is relatively the drones and smaller drones, and you can do the risk-based approach that justifies the continuous investment towards that. But the big picture is absolutely right. We need to do the entire manned, unmanned aviation, all harmonized, and commercial space is evolving, by the way, too. So all of that needs to be harmonized in a way that we see the future leading up to. So I'll stop here and get Eduardo his time.
No, I fully support what you have said. I think cooperation, of course, this is key. And the final picture that we have, I think it is fully shared by all of us. One digital integrated system managing in the drones, commercial aviation, and other vehicles. That vision is there. But it's true that now the challenge is that in the short term, it's true that we will have two systems. One UTM dealing with vehicles, below 400 feet. Another one ATM, and these two, they will need to converge. We need to learn from each other, and this will require a lot of cooperation and effort. Definitely from the ATM point of view, we are looking forward to learn from UTM. It's a fantastic test bed, and we see new ideas, new approaches, but it is true that it's a challenge because instead of expanding a system, we will need to deal with, I was talking before, starting point is segregation, which is not the best, but we need to start somewhere.
Mm-hmm. Can I just ask a follow-on question from that to the panel? And that would be, where do you think the real drive, where will the spark be where we see the change come from? I mean, sometimes the ATM industry, ANSPs, they're reluctant to change themselves. Where are we seeing the real change, the drive for change come from? What will be the catalyst to do it, do you think?
So I would say the way to think about this now moving forward is, my mantra is airspace should be ready when the vehicles are ready. So we have supersonic, in the future hypersonic, we have urban air mobility, commercial space transportation, drones of all sizes. And we need to make sure that the diversity, the density, and complexity can be managed, and airspace system is able to support. As soon as the certification occurs, they can have access to the airspace. If we want to drive towards that future, then that is what keeps the impetus. So if you look at the drones, millions of drones as compared with what happens today with, in the United States, roughly 50,000 operations in a day, 5,000 to 7,000 at peak. That will be 10 times more, or even more than that if we are drones. Same postulation exists for unmanned aircraft system. If you really want to transform the future and aviation be accessible to everyone in the world, and every zip code has some level of aviation touch point, whether it's drone or bigger aircraft or eVTOL, then we need to look at it differently. That's the drive. And it takes a while to change that. Time is now to start doing that, the research, the demonstrations, making sure it's safe, implementing in pieces. That journey is 10, 15, 20 years long. It doesn't happen overnight. And that's the reason why, if you're looking at the blueprint for future, we want to enable that future. Let's start now so that we will have systems in place to get there. That's sort of the main point we would like to say and convey to the world, that look, why we need to start doing that. Airspace system has to be ready when the vehicles are ready. We can't afford to have vehicles certificated in airspace. Now you're waiting to get approvals, operational approvals. I'll stop here.
Thank you, PK. Cristiano, do you think PK is right there? You're nodding your head, but 10, 15 years away? Is that?
Yeah, absolutely. I was trying to put up a slide which I borrowed by the joint Boeing Airbus initiative. I don't know if Amy can bring it back on a screen, because I think that picture is a very good representation of what PK was trying to say. We need to cope with an incredible diverse soon. Well, in 10 years, 15 years time, we will have to cope with an incredible diversity of flying objects and with a significant higher number if we compare them with the current situation. So we do have to change dramatically the paradigm of ATM, and I think that what the good chance we have now is that UTM is somehow still a white sheet, which we can draw the best way we can, and then if once we will prove this model works fine with in a easier situation, which could be the current one, which is already quite challenging, by the way, of small drones carrying goods for kilometers and stuff like that. Then we will be able to export this model to the future ATM, which is gonna be an integrated UTM ATM for coping with this future picture.
Okay, thank you, Cristiano. Should we move on to the next question, please? The next question is from Anand Kumar Pandey. He's asking about automation and artificial intelligence, AI. He wants to know what role AI can play in unmanned traffic management. What is the role that AI can play in UTM, specifically from the controller's point of view? So air traffic controllers' jobs are going to change radically, aren't they, under this new system, or maybe not? I mean, what does the panel think? Does PK, would you like to take that or first?
Yeah, I mean, I think the machine learning algorithms have value. They do better job in uncertain things, right? So you learn over a period of time. Weather is a good example. The low altitude, we have a lot of challenges with weather, because of the funneling effects and updrafts and headwinds. And so those have implications on your battery life or your ability to complete the mission. So the machine learning systems can actually take all that information and say, I have a 25-minute mission on a 98-degree Fahrenheit hot day with headwind of 20 knots, and I am at altitude flying at 8,000 feet. Am I going to be able to finish my mission? Or would I have challenges? And along the way, if the conditions change, then you can actually extrapolate those things. So we have good ideas about how the learning systems can actually help you on certain locations. I mean, you can say, oh, I learned that at 3 o'clock every day at that particular location, we have winds come in, So once you start to learn those things, the weather, particularly at low altitude, the finer grid weather understanding, you're not going to be able to put sensors everywhere, but over a period of time, we will be able to generate enough understanding of the phenomena that attributes the complexity and completeness of the mission. I think we have a lot of interesting situations where learning systems can support this over a period of time. And that will increase the safety and efficiency of the operations,
So there is some way to go before we can accommodate for weather in those predictions at the moment, but we will need AI to do that. Is that what you're saying, PK?
Yeah, it will definitely have a strong role in the learning systems to cope up with the weather and changes that expected. Absolutely.
Okay, thank you, Eduardo. I mean, is this something Canso thinking about yet about AI and how it might affect a controller's job and unmanned traffic?
Yeah, yes, definitely. This is something of interest for Canso, and actually, we are going to publish a white paper on artificial intelligence very soon, in a few weeks, and we will be organizing another webinar, by the way, about it to present it. But anyway, going back to the subject, I think what PK has said before is extremely important. So the starting point has to be the demand, and once we understand the demand, and we have these vehicles with different performance and high numbers, then we need to be ready, and it is obvious that we will need to do things different. And he's talking about digitalization, automation, and definitely artificial intelligence will definitely play an important role, for example, just to build capacity by automating traditional core controller functions. I'm talking about the future, of course, but there's definitely, if we want to be ready, to support all these new operations, we need to look into this.
Cristiano, is it something that D-Flight are looking at, the use of machine learning, AI, automation, your technology?
Well, we are not yet at that stage, I have to say. It is something that is a possible scenario. Automation is playing an important role in UTM, in the UTM segment. I don't think, and actually we do not have, we cannot affect too much the controllers, the ANSP, the traditional controllers with the UTM, because we know that this wouldn't work. They would crash immediately, and so we need to keep the two environments separated under the organizational point of view, and every UTM need to be based on automation. Now, how much of AI it's gonna be developed in the next years. It's a question. For sure, I already see some learning, automatic learning into making the discrimination between different scenarios and trying to make automatic evaluations of some kind of category of operation, so that to low down the human effort in doing some assessment. Mm-hmm. This is going to be a learning curve that will take place based also on the experience and on the amount of missions that will be requested throughout the authoritative process. For the time being, as I was saying before, we are still in a kind of experimental mood. So we do have BVLOS operations in Italy, but then they're very limited in scope and in number. But as soon as the big industry will really push for them to have the US introducing their industrial processes, I think this number will increase significantly, and then we will have to do something about it. Definitely.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to ask this next question from Mikhail Dubowski. It's because it's not a perspective that I've considered before, but he wants to ask about cost. That it's going to be complex for ANSPs to place the costs of UTM implementation. I mean, what should be their rate strategy regarding airlines, and what kind of pricing model structure? He writes here, it's obvious it's required for obstacle avoidance for air traffic, but mostly for in the airport's vicinity. PK, I mean, the situation in the US would be different, I guess. Perhaps you could give us a perspective about who's paying for all this implementation in the US, and then we could go to Cristiano and Eduardo for Europe.
Yeah, no, happy to do that. This is one area that I spend quite a bit of time thinking about UTM and early stages of the concept exploration of UTM. In fact, I looked into business models. I mean, one of the big lessons being in Silicon Valley you had to start thinking about how you are going to make an impact. And, in conventional marketplace, they look at the economy, like, are we going to be able to generate market and basically revenue out of it? And in our case, it's the impact, and what's the best way to do that? Who pays is a really important question. So in UTM, the way it evolved, I think one of the reasons I think UTM and USpace got accepted, largely adopted, is because it has ability to leverage industry's potential to offer services. That's a very critical statement, because what that means is ANSPs are still in charge, or the regulators are still in charge of the aviation, the airspace, the regulatory authority. However, we are leveraging the industry's ability to provide services. So operators and industry have this symbiotic relationship. Then operator is subscribing those services directly from industry. Industry is making the investments under the collaborative way with the government or ANSPs, however they are set up. In the United States, it's all government. Other places is government corporations. Other places is privatized. So these business models vary. But the idea there is that the acceptance is key, because now the investment from one singular party is limited. Now you got distributed investment by services, and you are also leveraging the marketplace, because now you have multiple service providers providing possibly same service, like your phone service, and then you're likely to get better services because of the competition and the acceleration of the research, and not dependent on vertically integrated industry. So I think there is a huge advantage of going towards service-oriented architecture, service-oriented model, and possibly either one entity providing all services or multiple entities providing all services. We left that decision to the individual countries as to how they want to do that. But that is one of the big powers of UTM, and that has, in my view, it has deep economics roots and transformative capability of entire airspace operations for better.
Thank you, PK. That's very interesting. Is it so to Eduardo Cristiano? I mean, is it so different in Europe? Will it be more? Is there much difference? I mean, there's a question here from Mark Miller, just to follow on. I mean, is it different? And are there any opportunities to make money for ANSPs from UTM?
Cristiano, come on, that's for you.
Shaking your head like no.
I mean, yeah. Well, I have to answer yes. I mean, INAV decided to invest into a company in building up a company, which in 2016 had some perspectives of growth. We built up a business plan based on an assumption, which now has been completely smashed down, because the assumption under which we created D-Flight was that UTM would have been a regulated market as an extension of ATM, with its differences, with the complete different technologies in a certain way, a different paradigm, but yet an extension of ATM. So it would have been confined into the natural monopoly as for ATM. Now this regulatory package that's been voted by the 26 member states, probably not UK, because UK now is not anymore in the EU. Maybe I could say lucky you, I don't know. But as a matter of fact, this regulation is saying, dear NSPs, forget about UTM. USpace is a free market, and everybody that get a certification will be able to enter this market and provide USpace services on a market, on the market, and with some. It's a kind of strange, because on the other hand, there will be US operators that will be obliged to consume services provided by the USpace service provider. Okay. On the other hand, the NSPs might have at least be in a condition to recover some costs for the transfer of knowledge, let me call it this way, which will take place through the Common Information Service provision. Okay, so that's going to be something which is not 100% clear by the regulation, that will allow the USpace service provider to access a number of information which are either statical or dynamic information, like the configuration of airspace, or even the traffic and the dynamic reconfiguration of airspace, and so on and so forth. And that effort will not be charged on the airlines, but it will be charged somehow to the USpace service provider. Coming to Italy, for the time being, we are setting up a model which was the original idea beyond the constitution of D-Flight. For the time being, the D-Flight is actually the Italian USpace service provider. We are running costs, and we are covering part of these costs through, for the time being, a subscription fee from the operators, which are requested to register on our platform. We are asking €6 per US operator when they are physical people, or 24 euros a year when they are juridical subjects. So it's very, let me say, cheap on a way, because we are thinking for the time being that we have some thousands of subscribers. Yet we are in a red zone, so we are not yet on a break even, and our break even, as I said before, was thought considering the original idea that UTM would have been remained as a monopoly. Now we had to reshuffle completely our business plan. We didn't finish yet. We are still convinced that by proposing added value services to the US operators and to other stakeholders, we'll be able to succeed and to get to a break even. But of course, it's a good challenge. It's a big challenge.
Eduardo, do you have anything to add there, or no?
Just to stress that in Europe, what is different, is our regulatory framework. We have this the performance scheme in place. So ANSPs, they cannot use root charges to fund the implementation of UTM. So that's why what Cristiano, the model that Cristiano was explaining is so interesting. This, so ANSPs, they are finding innovative ways to get into this market. But some other ANSPs, they are struggling, especially in the current circumstances, to find the resources to work on this is a big challenge.
Okay, great, thank you. PK, I think, are you still there, PK? I just would like to...
Yeah, I am.
Good stuff. Okay, thank you. Perhaps I'd like to just briefly go. I know you have to go soon. But briefly put you on the spot about USA compared to Europe. I mean, are you happy with the way that things are progressing in the USA at the moment regarding the development of UTM? And do you kind of look at Europe and see Europe as behind or at the same point? Or I'm kind of putting you on the spot there.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and that's good. I like these questions. And, typically I don't like to compare the behind ahead kind of thing because every country and every ecosystem has a different pressures and it's sort of unique. The way in the US, a lot of investment, to Eduardo's point and Cristiano's point, a lot of investment came from venture capitalists to build the UTM or US service supplier model that we pushed through. And that's sort of unique to California and in the United States kind of thing. That's now growing in other parts of the world, which is very exciting to see. So the main point is it's always good to have investment other than government and the same institutions because we want to modernize fast. We want to be able to collaborate through a public-private partnership kind of models. And I really enjoyed to see that, we had a number of horizontals going on. So the UTM is going on its own path of now going through rulemaking. We got a couple of rules done, basically broadcast remote ID, ops over people. The next one, FAA is, I think, going to look for is BV loss and network solution, which is UTM's main power is one to enable BV loss, right? Or without exceptions and all of that. That's where UTM excels. And then it goes to the other types of airspace. Europe has similar things going on through U-Space. They have 10 or so pilot projects. FAA had 10 pilot projects plus 2 UTM pilot projects. So I think we are at about similar level. Through ICAO group, we are also harmonizing the lessons learned so that in the countries that don't have enough resources that can benefit from other people's ideas and resources that have been spent to bring increased learning. At NASA, we just hosted a technical interchange meeting based on our 6 years of research project. And all of that information is available on the UTM website, also on the NASA Aeronautics Research Institute website. So I don't think anybody is that far behind or ahead. It's a matter of implementation based on the priorities and economics and other priorities that they had to undergo. But I think over a period of time, we'll look back in 20 years from now, and everybody will have this kind of thing going. So at that point, these differences of 6 months to a year won't mean anything, So I don't think we want to get too hung up on who's first, who's second, Sometimes being first is not always a good thing. I mean, we have examples of being first that are now lost, in history books. So we need sustainability is the main key, and economics is part of that, and growth is part of that, and integration, interoperability, acceptance is part of that. That's what I would say. My heart is making sure that this thing really goes in a way that will get accepted and operationalized consistently.
Okay, thank you, PK.
Kind of long-winded answer to your question.
You could have said yes or no, but yeah, it's fine. Yeah, don't worry, we appreciate it. Thank you very much. I'd just like to ask this question here from Aguinaldo Calvello Diaz. I'm not sure. I apologise if I've mispronounced your name, but it's about delivery drones, and delivery drones are. This may be the final question. I'm sorry, everyone, but delivery drones are often credited with being, an early adopter. We're going to see delivery drones first. Remote ID. Is it enough to enable the use of the more widespread use of delivery drones? We're seeing limited applications now in very controlled airspace, but are we kind of ready to go forward? Do you agree that they're going to be the first kind of application? PK, if you're still there, I don't know if you want to take this first quickly, or one of the others maybe. What do we think about delivery drones? Yes, please do, Cristiano.
So unless Eduardo, of course, you can complement. I think that it's quite evident that delivery will come on a second place, being anticipated by inspection management. I think that's the first challenge that we will have to accommodate. I think that the issue is not really accommodating BVLOS. So the issue is accommodating routine BVLOS, because that's a huge difference. And we are now able to accommodate single BVLOS here and there. But what I still see, it's the difficulty to have routinely operations in BVLOS, especially considering long-range BVLOS taking place. And the second step, of course, gonna be the delivery. Delivery assumes that you will be able to manage a fleet of drones. That's something that fleet of drones in some kind of fully autonomous mode. I think that's the key issue for making the delivery economically convenient and viable with respect to trucks taking goods all around. So that's an issue. Of course, there could be particular use cases which I would expect that they will take place earlier, because I think we need them with a higher level of emergency, and for which social acceptance will be easier, which is going to be the medical parcel delivery. That's something that is already taking place in Switzerland. For instance, Maternet is actively delivering blood samples among laboratories with drones, and we had some experiments in Italy, but I think this will take place. I'm ready to bet this will take place extensively already this year in Italy and maybe in other countries of Europe.
Mm-hmm. Eduardo, anything to add? PK, anything to Eduardo first?
Yeah, well, about drone delivery, something important, again, going back to the demand is there. People, they want to see that happening. I have seen a few surveys, and it is true that it's service that is demanded. Remote ID is a key enabler, but it is not enough. Of course, we need more, is what we're saying. This is a key technology, it will help us, but still until we see what Cristiano was explaining, these routine operations, it's at the end a layer system. So yeah, we need to keep working on it.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. All right. Okay, so I think I'd just like to sum up there. I'll ask each of the panelists what they think. To me, there's the main question here isn't if now, it's when it's going to happen. So the solution, the problems can be solved. There is demand and drive to do it, to solve these problems where perhaps there wasn't in the past. But when I'd like to ask just briefly, when you sum up, when do you think this is going to happen? Is it going to happen this decade? Yes or no? PK, do you think we're going to see more widespread use of UTM this decade?
I believe PK has some technical problems.
Okay.
Yeah.
Someone is going to have to be PK then, Eduardo or Cristiano.
I will start, and I will leave Cristiano the final word. So I believe we will see a lot of things in this decade, but this final picture that we have been discussing during the last hour, this digital integrated system, I think it will take longer. I think on the experience where things are happening very fast, we see a lot of technology developments happening. We all are doing our best, but this is a safety critical system, and we need to make sure that this journey, that is the important bit. We know this is going to be a long journey, a transformation of the whole industry, because this is the whole ATM aviation industry. It has to be done in a safe and efficient way.
Mm-hmm.
We cannot have, interruptions, and in order to make this under, control way, it will take a bit of time. It will take time. So we will see things happening this decade for sure, but this final picture probably will take more than 10 years. Cristiano.
Yeah, I do agree that the long-term picture will take still time. On the other hand, I'm a little bit desperate and frustrated. The first time I woke up in the night thinking about a UTM was in 2014. And then I was very enthusiastic when I found somebody else like PK that was doing the same thing as I was thinking of in the US. Now already 7 years almost passed already. And I look out of the window and I still see a desperately empty space. And to me, this is really a disaster because it's an incredible resource. Just few meters above ground, we have a surface completely congested. And if you move 10 meters above, you have a landscape of nothing. That's a pity. That's a pity, and we should do really some effort for starting making these resources available for these new users. That's my view. I know maybe I'm a little bit optimistic or idealistic. I don't know, but I really want to make this a reality, not being an old man. I remember when I was watching Blade Runner in the 80s, in the good 80s, and I thought, okay, this is gonna happen sometime. I really want to see this happening before I'm gonna die.
I think, maybe an optimistic and maybe a little bit somber note to finish on, Cristiano, but I agree. It would be good to see it happen. Certainly within my career and your career and Eduardo's career, and I think we will. All that remains for me to say really is to thank Eduardo, Cristiano, and PK for their involvement today. A thank to our sponsors again. ENAV, General Dynamics Mission Systems, and MITRE. And thank you for the audience for turning up and participating and staying with us despite the technical issues earlier. I think we've managed to bring it together anyway around a discussion, and it's a very interesting, exciting time for everyone involved. So this video, the recording of this session will be available online. You'll all receive an email. And it will be accessible from our website. So thank you, everybody, and please do enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.
Stay well.
Thank you, Ben. It was very, very great organization. Thank you for all the participants and the very interesting questions. And if you want to forward some of the questions to me, I will be glad to answer them offline, of course.
I apologize to everyone that we didn't get to their questions in time. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, PK. Ciao, PK. Hope you still listen to us.